A warm welcome back to the channel. So in today's edition, I'd like to feature a very rocky area where people are nonetheless buying land. And this area has the kind of stones that you see me holding in my hands. So what happens when you buy land in such an area? I'd like to show you tricks and tips that you can use so that you are able to make use of what you actually have at hand. Welcome. And so in my quest to convince you that it is actually possible to make the best out of such a rocky piece of land, I came across this house that has been built by a couple who were literally living on top of stones. So initially they had a mud house that was constructed right behind this house, and then upon realizing that they could make use of the stones that were fully packed in this compound, then they made a plan of a two-storied building that is now their home. So this house is a 3-bedroomed plan house that has been constructed purely using stones, especially the ground floor. So as soon as they realized that the stones were now getting over, that is when they decided to start using stone from the the first floor going upwards. So it is still work in progress. As you notice, it is a very beautiful and artistic house made of stones that were picked and dug out of this compound. I was really impressed by what this couple have been able to achieve in their home, because I'm aware that there are some people who have ancestral land in areas where there are a lot of rocks and stones, and these people have literally moved out of these homes because they feel like there's nothing they can accomplish from such pieces of land. So what this couple told me is that they are usually working on this house in a very progressive manner. It is gradual, such that whenever they had time and they had the intention, they will dig out the stones. Then they will have some boys come over so that they shape them into what can actually be used for construction of this house. And then progressively they could buy cement and sand. Then the construction process started. So up to this point, it's been a couple of years. And you realize that what they had initially was a mud house. So all these things are achievable depending on how you look at the situation. As they say, the glass is either half empty or half full. Such rocky pieces of land are usually very easy to identify because most of the time you'll find that on the surface there are a lot of rocks, even as much as you'll find some vegetation. This means that most of the time you'll find that there are even bigger sizes of rocks underneath the surface of the ground, like you notice on this piece of land where we went visiting with a friend who had bought it recently and had shied away from developing it as soon as she realized that it had a lot of stones. This was before I was able to convince her that it is possible to redeem such kind of land. You notice that at the side of this plot she had actually brought some materials in readiness for construction of her dream house, and this was stalled because of discouragement from I'd say not knowing that it is possible to do such kind of things. So usually what happens is that you hire people to pick stones for you. If you're in an area where you can hire cheap labor, like from children who've just completed their 4th form, you know these are children who can be hired because they are over 18 years, then you can do so that they come in with what we call, what are those called? I've forgotten the name of that tool, but usually they just dig up the stones and then they collect them using their hands, like what you see me doing on this video. So if you stick to the end of this video, you'll be able to see what happens after the stones have been collected. We were also able to walk around and check on what other people were doing in their pieces of land, and this is exactly what most of the people were doing in this area, just collecting the stones and digging up the very big ones. Some people had even gone ahead and started making foundations. But what was evident and constant for most of these pieces was that the stones were actually being made use of. So you realize that once you buy land in such an area, most of the time, even when you're doing your foundation, you'll find that there are stones even below the surface of the ground, like you can see. Some of the times you find very huge stones. So you have to use your brain so that you make use of this plot in your favor. So What I can say is that when you dig up the foundation, of course you'll get even more stones. You put them aside and then you plan on what you can do with them, even as much as you can buy other construction materials depending on the kind of construction or house that you'd like to build. Something else that you can do if you have a lot of stones in your compound or your plot, say you've bought somewhere and it is this rocky, most of the time you find these places going for a fairly friendly price, so it is not a problem. I want to give you another tip that you can use. So what you do is that you hire people so that they come with mallets and then they break down the stone into what we call ballast. So you know, this one will be very helpful, especially when you're doing the foundation, and then if it is in extra or in surplus, then you can actually sell it. This one comes very costly if you have to buy it from the people who are doing this kind of job. So it is not a problem to buy land that is in a rocky area because it is advantageous for you. And so generally this process entails digging up most of the stones and rocks that are on the surface of the land to make it flat or leveled up. This is made possible by the tools that I had earlier mentioned, which are mattocks, and also assembly of the stones to a particular point using wheelbarrows. Whatever stones or rocks that remain underneath the surface are usually stable and solid, and therefore this is a good foundation for structures if you're going to construct a building there. It rarely settles or shifts like soil does, and also it makes it less susceptible to structural damages over time. The next stage after assembly of the stones or the rocks is to break them down into what we call ballast. This is a process that is usually done manually in very basic settings using what we call a mallet. I had an opportunity to get a feel of how it goes. It is not as easy as it looks. Also, this process needs protective items. This is what I came to realize later. People need helmets and some things to protect their eyes because the force at which the stone breaks is quite high. It can really cause damages to the eyes or the head for that matter. And so the laborers are paid according to the amount of ballast they are able to create in a day. So these heaps you see represent different kind of people who are working on each of them. Depending on how much stone is there in a plot, that will determine the number of laborers you need to hire for this kind of job. It is not as easy as it looks, but it is something manageable. So the process is quite repetitive in nature, as you may have noticed, and this duration will depend on how many laborers you have on site, the size of your plot, and factors like how much stone is there on the ground. I've seen some people employ machines to do this kind of job, but this will depend on how heavy your pocket is also. If you're not out to spend so much money on the same, then it means that you have to go this relatively slow way, and this is to hire laborers who do the manual work. So like this particular plot has yielded a lot of stone that I think will just cancel out the cost of labor that has been used in digging up and breaking up the stones into ballast. This money in return, you put it into buying the materials that you need. So moving on swiftly, I'd like to showcase other ways you can use the stones. You notice that this is a stone wall fence that has been meticulously done in a very rocky area, and stones have been utilized quite well. There's also this pattern that has been put around the stone that makes it look very appealing to the eye. And I think such positive development is usually very contagious, actually more contagious than COVID. You notice that everyone in this area has basically used stone for either their walls or the houses themselves. And there are also a lot of other ways that you can use stone to your favor. And if you stick to the end of this video, you'll be able to see exactly how you can achieve this. There are also many advantages attached to you using stones for your wall fence and your house versus using things like bricks. First of all, the process will be faster because they are relatively bigger than bricks, and then you'll end up using very little cement and sand. Number 3, there are no transport implications because you're getting them from the site itself, and then they become brighter when they are washed with rain. So the more they are washed, the better they become in terms of, they look more polished. Then this is the other thing that I was talking about. You can use the extra stones of different sizes to create aesthetic looks around your plants. So you don't have to buy, what are they called? Pots and vases, especially these ones that people usually like to put outside their houses, made of concrete. So what you do is that you just plow the ground and put your plant, then surround it with the different sizes of stones. You can even go ahead and color them. I've seen people color stones in very beautiful and attractive colors that make it you may not even realize that it was stone. And then there's this other unique design that you may want to check out. So you just play around with the stones depending on your creativity levels. Like this one is quite interesting to look at. And with that, I come to the end of this edition. I hope you are encouraged one way or the other. If you like this video, please tap on the like button right below this video. And if you're not a subscriber, please, to help the channel grow, you can consider tapping on the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching it till the end. Until the next one, it is bye for now.